Welcome back to Science vs. Conspiracy over coffee. Thanks for joining us. I was originally going to do a show about Yellowstone National Park and the mysterious hum and its possible connection to the legendary Bigfoot. I decided to switch gears and do that episode at a later time. Instead, Science and I recently took a trip to the Hawaiian island of Oahu. One of the great things about traveling to new places is that you get to learn and experience new things about the local people and their culture. While sitting on a beach and swimming in the warm ocean, we learned about one of Hawaii's many legends. Brew some coffee, pull up a chair, and open your mind. This week, Science vs. Conspiracy travel to Hawaii and search for the Menehune over coffee. Long before the first Polynesian settlers crossed the ocean from Hiva Oa to the Hawaiian Islands between 1000 and 1200 CE, there lived a group of small yet resourceful people that roamed the lush Hawaiian forests. Locals call them the Menehune. The Tahitian word Menehu meaning commoner or small in social standings, not in physical size. Legend has it that they're about 2 to 3 feet tall, with some only reaching 6 inches in height. Small enough to fit in the palm of your hand, they lived hidden away and rarely seen by humans. They would roam the forests and valleys mostly at night. According to local lore, the Menehune enjoyed dancing, singing, and archery. They would like to dine on bananas and fish. The Menehune were said to be smart, extremely strong, and have excellent craftsmanship. They have been credited with mighty feats of engineering and overnight construction projects. However, if they're seen by anyone during their overnight construction projects, they would just abandon it and run off into the jungle, leaving the project unfinished. Using their ingenuity and craftsmanship, along with their great strength, they would build temples, fish ponds, roads, canoes, and houses throughout the islands. In one single night 1,000 years ago, one of the finest examples of ancient Hawaiian architecture was built by these legendary builders. The Alakoko fish pond on Kauai was meticulously assembled using lava rock. The wall is 900 feet long and 5 feet tall. The fishing pond is located on the National Wildlife Refuge, which you can kayak around, but the pond's entrance is closed to the public. The site has been on the National Register of Historic Places since 1973. But how was it created in a single night? Well, the Menehune lined up from a nearby village for 25 miles, cutting and transporting and fitting stones for their projects in a long bucket brigade until the pond was finished. The fish pond is said to have been built for a princess and her brother. Keeping with tradition, the Menehune were promised no one would watch them as they worked. However, the royal siblings snuck up and watched the thousands of Menehune at work, only to fall asleep. In the morning, they were discovered, and the Menehune turned them into twin stone pillars that can be seen today in the mountains above the fish pond. Unfortunately, they were interrupted by the morning sun and 2 gaps were left unfinished. Generations later, Chinese settlers would fill in the gaps, but the stonework was far inferior to that of the mythical Menehune. Another example of the Menehune engineering expertise is the Kiki Alo, also known as the Menehune Ditch. It's a historic irrigation ditch that funnels water from the Waimea River on Kauai. According to Hawaiian folklore, the Menehune are said to possess supernatural powers. In a story not too dissimilar from that of Cupid, the childlike archer of Valentine's Day fame, the Menehune have been known to use magical arrows to pierce the hearts of angry people that is said to spark feelings of love in their victims. Once the first settlers arrived from Polynesia by canoe traveling 2,000 miles, followed by a second wave of immigration from Tahiti, and Polynesia in the 1400s, the Menehune were considered lower class or commoners, and treated as such, displacing them further and further into the forests and valleys of the islands. They became tricksters to the new settlers. Were the Menehune real? Did they exist? This is where the story gets a little sketchy. Prior to European contact with the Tahiti settlers, there was no mention of the Menehune. It wasn't until the Europeans brought the fantastical literature of fairy tales to the islands that the stories began to spread. Linguist and educator William DeWitt Alexander, 1833 to 1913, was the first European to ascribe magical powers and characteristics to the Menehune and identify them as a separate class or race of humans. In his 1891 book, A Brief History of the Hawaiian People, he recognized the unique structures found throughout the island and attributed their construction to the Menehune elves. In 1820, on the official census of Kauai, 65 people were listed as Menehune. Something else occurred to me when doing research for the show, remembering back to 2003-2004 when the remains of an ancient ancestor to Homo sapiens were uncovered in Indonesia. This new species had an average height of just over a meter. They were discovered in the Liang Bua caves on the island of Flores in Indonesia. This new species became known as Homo floresiensis. Two other sites were also discovered on the narrow 200-mile-long, 40-mile-wide island that sits between Southeast Asia and Australia. The sites contained the remains of several Homo floresiensis. With brains a third of the size of modern humans, they were still able to make stone tools, butcher meat, and somehow cross miles of ocean to colonize their tropical home. Because of their appearance, it earned them the nickname of hobbits, taken from Tolkien's Lord of the Rings and Hobbit books. Archaeologists now estimate Homo floresiensis existed 500,000 to 1 million years ago. Hawaiians can trace their ancestry back to Polynesia and back even further to Indonesia. So I don't think it's too much of a leap to suggest that perhaps early Homo floresiensis made the trip to the Hawaiian Islands centuries before the first recorded Polynesian settlers arrived, meaning that the Menehune could share a common lineage with Homo floresiensis before being wiped out by the Polynesians. Today, the Menehune are depicted in cartoon form as hard-working, small people on tourist trinkets and array of products. While we were in Hawaii, there was even a sign at one of the pools that had a water slide, and there was a wooden cutout of a Menehune showing you how tall you had to be in order to ride the water slide. So what do you guys think? Are the Menehune real? If so, are they related to Homo floresiensis in Indonesia? I'm opening the floor up to you. Let me know what you think in the comments. As you may have guessed, I've been sick this week, so I apologize if I've mispronounced any of the names or places incorrectly in this episode. If you liked the video, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel and turn on those notifications. That way you'll be notified every time we release new content. We try to release new videos every Monday, and our podcast goes up on Fridays. So that's it for this week. Remember, being paranoid is smart, and we'll see you next time. This week's episode of Science vs. Conspiracy Over Coffee was produced by Lethologica. Research and writing was done by Bob Homer and Jennifer Timer.